Ranjit and I had a bet which one of us would take longest. So,
Trev, stop it. Just do it.
all right. No, seriously, I must go off script just a little bit. It genuinely feels like I'm back with the family. When you remember seeing those TV shows where they wind the clock back and go back to the beginning, it kind of feels like this. Everything that Ranjit was talking about through Geoff's life, I was at the far end of letters and occasional meetings and then internet emails and eventually when his time at Ash Lodge almost every day on WhatsApp chatting to him. So it's been quite extraordinary to meet everybody. I've never felt more at home, and I know my daughter Kay, who many of you have met, feels exactly the same way. Now, when I sat down I was asked to say something, I thought, well, shall I use artificial intelligence to write this speech, because it's what I do in my job. And I thought to myself, who could ever sum Geoff up in a data set that you could run an artificial intelligence system on? Nobody could ever put Geoff into an artificial system. So I had to write it myself. So everything I say is from the heart, but it's had a lot of input from a lot of people, and I have to read it because I'm a bit blind and I want to get it right, because I may see many of you never again. So I want to start off, despite the fact I've been asked not to ask you to put your hands together and say thank you very much indeed to Rakia and Ranjit and Claire and John. They deserve it. It's incredible that we're here and we had that amazing service and it was tremendous. Okay, so thank you for that. Now, the other thing I want to say before I actually start is, after I've said my little piece, and we had those very moving pieces earlier on, I want everybody to just come up and tell a story, a funny story, a sad story about you and Geoff, so we can really, really get it out of our systems. But what I really want to do is talk about why Geoff mattered. And mattering was very important for him. And that's really what the theme is here. And I'd like to start with Geoff's story. Now, as somebody here once described Geoff as very caring, but very difficult. Do we all agree? Anybody knows it, right? So I was born 6 years after Geoff. And I was full of beans, very perky, probably still am. And we didn't get on terribly well. So I'm afraid most of my life with my brother in the early years was mostly difficult without very much caring. But it kind of changed over the years. So we were a family of 6, and Geoff and I were very, very close to our mum. And I'll talk to her about her a little bit. She was a very smart radar technician during the Second World War. She used to go up in Aberransons and make radar work, which is incredible. We all live with it in our cars now. And my mum was one of those people. Now, she had very strong beliefs and values, which you are going to recognise very, very quickly. And Geoff remembered those every day, and he lived by them every day. He and I had a set of probably a dozen little proverbs that was the way that Mum told us to do our life. And I have to say, today still, I tell my daughters about these things. So Mum was a tremendous influence on us. Our dad was very, very loving, but the Second World War damaged him. Let's not make any bones about it. I've been in my own little war. I had my own little bit of damage. He had a massive war. And he was damaged, and he was a wonderful, wonderful, kind man, but he was very, very quiet within himself. And I think some of that was part of Geoff's personality. He also was very, very hard-working dad. And he was setting up a company after the war, and we only ever saw him at the weekends. But when we saw him at the weekends, we had a really, really great time, very, very intense. But the result was that Geoff and I spent an awful lot of time with Mum, because Dad was at work. But it wasn't because he didn't love us, it was just because he was so thick and busy. And setting our company up after the Second World War was hard work. It always is. There's my notes. Okay, but we were a very busy family. And this is a bit that may surprise you just a little bit. We were so active. Every weekend we'd go and do stuff, and Geoff was always away boating, motoring holidays. We went to the seaside almost every weekend. That was pretty much all we could afford, and we would go to the seaside. And when he was young, Geoff would run around like a crazy man. He would swim. He would do all sorts of stuff, build sandcastles, beat his brother up, all right? So he was just a regular lad. And I look at the pictures, and I look at my memories of him. Okay, he was less ebullient than myself, but he was just regular. And the turning point in Geoff's life came when he went to Tunbridge School. And that's the school he went to and I went to. And in fact, on Wednesday, I had dinner with 2 other people who were at Tunbridge School with us. And that was the making of the man that you all know, love so much. All the beliefs and values that he has, I think, on top of those that Mother gave him, were so important. Now, I don't know what you know, but Tunbridge School was not the regular establishment public school with all the snotty ideas. Just before Geoff arrived at the school, and he subsequently became head of the house, there was a new headmaster, and he has gone down in the history of public schools as the most reforming headmaster. We were brought up by a liberal, caring, open-minded bunch of teachers and an establishment. It was extraordinary. We were not the Eden and the Harrow that was around at the time. We were Tunbridge School, and I don't think people understood it. And the people I had dinner with on Wednesday, they said exactly the same. They're all liberal-minded like me. I'm not quite perhaps as left as Geoff, but I'm very close behind him. So, the only thing that people used to remember about Tunbridge School is it's produced more England cricket captains than any other school in history, which I think is pretty cool, being next door to Edgbaston like this. Okay, so here's the key thing that Tunbridge did for Geoff, a little bit for me, but mainly for Geoff. It allowed him to be smart and to be respected by the people he respected. It allowed him to be smart without anybody being funny about him, without anybody trying to tear him off one. And we had a very tutorial system. So there'd be one tutor, half a dozen students, and he was allowed to be Geoff. And he enjoyed that. He realised he was smart and he got a great education. And because there was this development done, he came out of it with a really clear view of himself. And I think at the point, and I was talking to Ranjit earlier on, he decided not to go into any conventional business. He was offered a job at GCHQ. I actually did work at GCHQ, which is really embarrassing to tell anybody. But he decided not to go down that route. The one thing that connected Geoff and myself was we were brought up by my parents without any formal religion, none at all. But we were surrounded by many, many faiths and beliefs, and our parents told us to work it out for ourselves. And my father in particular believed in what he called benign neglect. That's, okay, sons, you go and fix it. My sisters, I don't think had the same experience, but they're not here to talk for themselves. But we'll see what they think about that, because they're getting a copy of this. But here's the key thing. We had to navigate what it was all about. And I think several people have said, what's the meaning of life and all that sort of thing. And I remember meeting Geoff in a pub in Birmingham. I was actually on my way to a whitewater kayaking competition, but I thought I'd stop with my brother in Birmingham for the night. And we went to the pub, and I suddenly realised that he'd worked it out. It seemed that his approach was to, I've got a quote here, finding a place in my world where I can use my brain and an education to make a difference. And he said that, whatever it was, 50 years ago to me, and I kept those words in my head. Finding a place in the world where he could use his brain and his education to make a difference. Do we think he succeeded? Yeah, I think he did. And he actually sat down and worked that out as a result of being allowed the freedom of Tunbridge. Then he met these amazing people, some of whom are here, came up here, and away he went. I've got lots more I could talk about, but there's one really serious thing that I want to say. We all know that Geoff had his own, sometimes very huge moments of self-doubt. We all do. But they were rather too generously given out to Geoff. And he had moments where he got very, very unsure of himself. So I want to thank every single person here, because you gave Geoff the personal fulfillment of mattering to you. He mattered to everybody and everybody's children and everybody related to the people in this room. And the fact he mattered, I believe, were the highlights of his life. And I think when he went down, there was an up only because of you. So thank you very much. Give yourself a hand for being so brilliant. That's a weird fact. So I'm told by somebody in this room, I can't remember who said it to me, that when Geoff went, he passed away well. Kay and I had both been to see him, both in the ICU and in the home. And I understood he passed away well, and I would be happy to pass away the way he did. And that brings a great deal of comfort to me as his brother. But what's really brought us all together is that Geoff mattered to you. So I'd like to finish up by saying thank you for letting me come into the family. Thank you for sharing your stuff with me one-to-one. And if you feel like it, come up the front here and tell some more stories about Geoff. Thank you very much for bringing me in. I also want to say I've just retired as a professor at university, so I almost feel like saying, any questions?